Hey everyone, I'm Natalie Bencivenga and welcome to 5 Minutes With. This week I have the honor and the privilege of chatting with Heather Arnet. She is the CEO of the Women and Girls Foundation, and normally I film this earlier in the week, but because this has been one exciting week, we are filming this as close to airtime as possible. So it is 10 a.m. on Friday morning. So Heather, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for waiting to record this till Friday morning, because I think we are both in much better moods this morning than we would have been on Wednesday morning.
I would have to agree with that. And before we delve into all of the election goodness, I would love for people to learn just a little bit about the Women and Girls Foundation.
Sure. So Women and Girls Foundation is based in Pittsburgh. We serve the whole state. We are engaged in local and statewide programming as well as public policy work. And really our work is focused on breaking down barriers so that every girl can rise and every woman can soar. So our work is really focused on systemic change. And whether that means our programming work or our public policy work, that's really our goal, is to break down systems that aren't working and try and put into public policy, improve systems to help folks and their lives. So whether that means advocating for increased access to paid sick days and paid family and medical leave through our family care campaign, or trying to improve the economic security of single moms through our Femisphere project, or empowering young women's voices and helping them develop their public policy campaigns through GirlGov. That's what all our work is focused on, is systemic change and towards that vision of gender equality.
That's wonderful. And so as we sort of have a new focus now, it's been now forever, or really just 3 days since the election.
I don't know, when did the election
all happen? Can you talk a little bit
ago?
about your thoughts on Pennsylvania, and were you expecting it to be this close in particular in Pennsylvania?
Oh, in Pennsylvania or the whole country?
Well, you can talk about both, yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess in some ways both, right? Pennsylvania as a swing state kind of ends up being really this bellwether for the nation, sadly. And it's interesting, actually, I live in one of these districts that I think is actually representative of the state in that way. And then the state is representative of the nation in that it's terribly divided. And I know there are a lot of folks who are really surprised that the election as a whole is as close as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I think I can say this at this point, hopefully Vice President Biden and Senator Kamala Harris are victorious today.
Mm-hmm.
And I say hopefully because, as a 501c3, we don't endorse any candidates. But at this point now the election's over, I think that there are majorities, right, of people in this country who are hoping to see an uber majority, elect that ticket, because there felt like there should be a moral mandate against Donald Trump because of the extreme racism, the extreme misogyny, the extreme failure to handle this epidemic that has resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths of Americans by COVID. In addition to hundreds of thousands of fatalities of Americans as a result of racism and systemic economic inequity in this country, all of which he has ignored. So, I think there are a lot of folks who are really sad and angry and frustrated with how close the election results are. And I think there are a lot of people, and I'm included in that, who sadly aren't surprised, right, because we knew all along that this country is really deeply divided. And sadly there are a lot of folks who think that he was doing just quite fine for them, and that's troubling. And hopefully we can as a nation move forward and hopefully be able to enter into some sort of dialogue to help those folks kind of get to another place. But I also feel like we can't give all our energy to focusing on them, right? Because they never do that with us. So I also want to encourage folks to think about moving forward in the way that We know the public policies that we want to see happen in order to improve people's lives, right? We know that the criminal justice system needs to be reformed, if not completely taken apart and started to be rebuilt from scratch. We know that people need paid sick days and paid family and medical leave across this country, period. Let's make it happen. We know we need universal health care for everyone. Let's make it happen. We know we need to protect reproductive justice and reproductive rights federally, because the Supreme Court's not going to do it. We know we need to protect LGBTQT rights federally, because we can't rely on the Supreme Court. So let's focus on us. I guess that's how I feel. Like, the elections kind of made something clear, and let's not focus on the other half maybe right now.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's important, to your point, there's been a lot of misinformation sown and not a lot of education around issues. And what I love about GirlGov is that you're working with the next generation of leaders, the women, the young girls and women coming up the ranks. So can you talk a little bit more about that program?
Yeah, GirlGov, it's a program that teen women in our youth program really have evolved themselves. So folks might remember back in 2005, the program was called Girls as Grantmakers. Those girls took on Abercrombie and Fitch with a Girl Cod. Fast forward, they've made that program into GirlGov, which started as a shadowing program. The girls would just go up and shadow legislators once a year in Harrisburg. Now they are over 135 girls representing 62 schools. In a regular non-COVID year, they meet twice a month in person. Now they actually meet once a week via Zoom. They develop their own public policy and advocacy campaigns. They are, what we're doing is really training and educating them to be policy makers and system change activists, because yes, we hope that someday they'll run for office, and some of them will. But the truth is, right now, none of them are old enough to run for office and be elected officials today. But they are old enough to be activists and change makers today. They can make legislation, they can change legislation with their voices, with their activism today. And that's what GirlGov is about, is teaching them and giving them the tools to be successful activists, which they can do now in high school and then in college and then for the rest of their lives.
And what I love that people aren't really speaking about, but sort of to dovetail off of GirlGov, we're kind of on the cusp of making history, right? With having the possibility of electing our very first female vice president, and she's a woman of color. So could you talk a little bit about the importance of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in some ways, nothing it's so symbolic, right? That here we are, Friday morning, and I don't know about you, but I've been watching a lot of news. I've been consuming a lot of news on all mediums, my television, my phone, my computer, and I have hardly seen any mentioning of the fact that we are about to elect our first female vice president and our first woman of color vice president, and there's barely any mentioning of it. And that in and of itself is an example of how marginalized women and people of color are in this country, because this is a huge moment for this country. It's on one hand repugnant that we've had to wait 200 years or so to make it happen, but we're making it happen. And she's going to be a force for good in that White House and for our country. And it's so inspiring to our girls. If you go to GirlGov's Instagram account, our Women and Girls Foundation's Instagram account, our Facebook pages, you're going to see today a Padlet, an image that was created of a collage of voices and quotes from our girls about what this moment means to them, that we are about to elect the first woman vice president, woman of color. She's going to be there. And I'll tell you what, now that we're going to have her in that White House, I hope you boys have enjoyed your first few hundred years, because this is it. And this is it. You've had your few hundred years. Now it's our turn. But quite seriously, this is a really big moment, and the fact that folks aren't talking about it in and of itself says something about this country. But now let's the rest of us start talking about it and start celebrating it, because it's huge and it's important, and it's going to be so meaningful to girls who can see that we can do it. We belong there too.
I love that. And as we wrap up this 5 minutes with, how can people get involved with Women and Girls Foundation? I think you have a big campaign coming up, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that before we wrap up.
Yeah, it's just like with our girls, where, the heart of our work is about activism and is about empowering everyone to know that they they have the power to make change. And so a lot of you know about Giving Tuesday, right? It's the day where we're all encouraged to make donations to the charities that we love. And so what we are doing is we're encouraging folks that, yes, we hope that on Giving Tuesday that you will give big and encourage you to make a donation to Women and Girls Foundation. But leading up to that, what we want to encourage folks to do is tell us, what will you work for? At the Women and Girls Foundation, we work for equality, right? And that means a lot of things. We're working for reproductive justice. We're working for environmental justice. We're working for economic justice. We're working for paid leave. What's important to you? So we're encouraging folks to, write, what will you work for? And hold up a sign and take a video, make a picture, tag us, and tell us, going into this new year, what are you going to be working for? And how do you want to partner with us to do that? And then make a donation. But we aren't about just making donations, right? It's true. Women and Girls Foundation is a grassroots organization. We're supported by donors like you, Natalie. But it's not just about donor dollars, right? This is about building a movement. And you're all part of that. So that's what our Give Big campaign is about. It's about like, well, what do you want to work for? What will you work for? And how can we do that together?
I think that makes total sense, because at the end of the day, no matter who ends up in the White House, there's still work to be done. And the Women and Girls Foundation is such a great example and leading the way towards equity and social justice. So thank you so much, Heather, for taking a little more than 5 minutes with me. I appreciate you and the work that you're doing with the Women and Girls Foundation.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you, Natalie, for all the work you do for social justice.
Thank you. Bye.